Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We're coming on to when we are scheduled to kick off this webinar. As anyone who's attended a webinar of ours in the past, we typically give everyone a slight technology window. So we're going to wait a couple more minutes, let people get their Zoom situated, and then we are going to dive into talking about how to pay for an ADU. So stay tuned. We're going to give it about 2 minutes, and then we're going to dive right into this. To participants and everyone wondering what I'm doing on the phone, we're troubleshooting a quick technical issue with video. Stay tuned. All right. Slight technical difficulty. We had that as an issue a couple weeks ago and never actually figured out how to fix it, but we've got too many good people talking about ADUs tonight to not allow everyone to share their videos. So we're about 2 past. I think some people are going to continue to stream in, but we've got a lot to cover tonight, so we're gonna dive right into it. So for those that don't know me, my name is Chris Lee. I'm head of design and development at Backyard ADUs. And we are a company that is focused on building small homes. And the vast majority of what we do is building small homes as ADUs in people's backyards. We got started, we're almost to our 3-year anniversary. That will be at the end of September. But we're building really throughout Massachusetts and New Hampshire and in Maine. With us tonight, we've got Tim O'Reilly from Backyard ADUs, and he oversees design and development in Massachusetts for all of our ADUs. And we also have our new financing partner on the, we have several representatives from our new financing partner, Renify, on the call. We've got Charles Eddington, David Balterson, and Madeline Smith, who have joined us after successfully helping a few of our clients finance their ADUs. And we expect them to be able to help a lot more. And they've got an enormous amount of experience doing this, and are doing something and are doing ADU finance in a bit of a unique way, which they'll explain towards the end. So the other thing about webinars at Backyard ADUs between 5:30 and 6:30 is I am always on baby duty. So what I'll be doing tonight is acting kind of as an MC, answering questions and handing off questions to everyone at Renify and to Tim. We are going to start with a quick presentation by Tim O'Reilly talking about some of the really big questions that we get from people as they're trying to figure out how to build an ADU, usually for their parents, sometimes for an adult child, and sometimes as a rental unit. He's going to talk about those questions, how we've solved them. Renify is going to talk in a lot more detail about the way that people are solving them with private finance. But Tim's also going to talk about the home modification loan program in Mass, which has successfully helped a few of our clients get quite a lot of funding. And then one other neat financing option that we came across just a little while ago that's new in Mass. And then I know that there are some people from Maine on the call as well. Unfortunately, Maine doesn't have as many state financing options, but everything from the private finance standpoint is going to apply equally in Mass, New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, and Vermont, wherever you might be calling in from. So with that, I am going to hand things off to Tim O'Reilly, Head of Design Development in Mass. Tim.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the fantastic introduction. And thank you everyone for coming tonight. We're excited to show you everything that's going on here. Before I dive in, I just want to make sure we keep Chris busy, even though he's on baby duty. So if you've been in a webinar before, or this is your first time, at the bottom of your screen there, there should hopefully be a little Q&A tab. And you can click that and go ahead and fire away your questions. Chris will be taking your questions, and we'll, as we move through our webinar tonight, be pausing to answer those questions. Awesome. Let me share my screen and we'll get right into it. Awesome. Great. So what we're covering tonight is financing. Thank you, Chris, for getting us started. Our two common questions, and luckily there are great solutions. So we're going to look at both of those. I'm going to talk about the HMLP program, which has a fantastic 0% financing option. And then our team from Renify here is going to take number 3 and run with it. So what we often get, the biggest question is how am I going to pay for this home? You know, I'm planning to move into the backyard. I currently have a house. What's the dance going to be like between selling my primary house, building the ADU, and making sure that the financing is smooth between the two? And there's a bunch of options out there. HELOCs, a second mortgage, or a personal loan are all great avenues, depending on your situation, to approach that. When you dive into the details, it'll really depend on how much do you need to borrow, what are interest rates, and what's the timeline going to be? How long is it going to take for the build process, for selling the house? There's no one clear-cut solution for everyone, but luckily there's a plethora of options to help you figure that out.
Hey, Tim, quick follow-up on that one. How long do people typically need to plan to finance the construction before they're ready to move in? Like, what's the gap that a lot of people are trying to close?
Yeah, on our sense, with our building timelines, we're able to get our house designs and our fixed construction contract done in a month to 3 months. Really depends on how many changes and design iterations we go through. And then kind of once you have that contract, you know the number you're going to need to lend. You're able to go out and get financing, and then we can schedule builds. Generally, pre-COVID, our timeline was a bit different, about 6 months. But now we're really looking at more maybe 8 months to a year. So you're able to get that financing piece in place, sign the contract, and then hopefully move into your ADU in less than a year. Is that satisfactory, Chris? Is there any follow-ups to that?
Yeah, I think so. I guess in summary, for those of you that are going to be selling a house and then using the proceeds to pay off the ADU or pay off a mortgage, you're going to be looking to close basically a financing gap of like 5 to 8 months. So that's kind of a number to have in mind in this scenario.
Great. And that's a perfect transition. So, on the financing side, that 5 to 8 months, the practicality side, what are you going to do in that gap? And there's a bunch of different options. If you're moving into the backyard of, say, your parents' house, or vice versa, your children's house, maybe there's an extra bedroom. Maybe it's somewhere you could stay temporarily until that ADU is finished. But there's a bunch of other options. Could you find a seasonal rental, something temporary? In the winter, this works great, especially in areas like Cape Cod, where the demand on housing isn't as intense as the summer. It sounds a bit out there, but a camper, it's a great option. You can hook it up, have all your amenities, have your separate space. When you're done with it, it's still an asset. You can sell it and move on. And then couch surfing, can you find kind of that temporary option to bridge the gap? We've had clients do all of these. We had a client live in I don't know if it was a Winnebago, but in her daughter's oversized driveway and she spent a New England winter in that driveway, staying nice and toasty in the camper. We've had other people, move into a spare bedroom, or, move into a friend's house, or find a seasonal rental where they're able to bridge that gap.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. I think for the people that we've worked with that have done a temporary rental or a camper, it really makes moving into your ADU feel a lot bigger, especially if you're going from like a 2,000 square foot home down to a 300 square foot camper and then back into a 600 to 800 square foot ADU. It's kind of a neat little reset to help downsize. I don't think we've ever had anyone actually sleep on a couch, but we've certainly had people sleep in a spare bedroom in their kids' rooms for a month or two. But that's certainly something that I think most families want to limit.
Yeah, and me personally, I think it'd be a great time to travel, to take a trip. Know that, hey, construction is going to start, let's say in 3 months. I have a gap to fill there. Awesome. So the second common question we get is, how is this ADU going to be viewed in terms of taxes? So if I'm building an ADU, let's say in my parents' backyard, how is that going to work? The answer is fairly simple. There's a form you need to fill out, IRS form 709. And as long as your estate isn't worth greater than $12 million, you should be good to go.
Yeah, this is you basically draw down what you're allowed to give for free in the US by filling out this form instead of needing to pay gift tax early. If you do happen to have more than $12 million that you're hoping to pass on, there are other tax strategies to use to try to reduce that estate tax burden. But that is something that you could work on with, I'm sure. If you have that much money, you probably have a wealth advisor who knows a whole lot about it. But this is something very common that comes up, because when you do build an ADU in your kid's backyard or a friend's backyard for $150,000 or $250,000, that is a gift to that family member.
Great. I saw a question come in, Chris.
Yep, we did get one in. So this is a non-ADU related one, but it still certainly applies to this. And I think we'll probably defer this to a little bit later for Renify, but they're asking about being a first-time home buyer and trying to buy land and build, and what the mortgage options are. So we're going to defer that one and come back to it a little bit later.
Perfect. All right, so we've answered the two common questions. The last little asterisk here is, does the current owner need to be on the ADU's mortgage? This is one we're going to touch on later with Renify. But the very simple answer is yes. So now looking at option 2 here, what are some other funds out there? One that we've come across and we've done a couple projects with in Massachusetts is the Home Modification Loan Program. I feel like I'm always out there saying the HMLP, and it's like, what does that actually stand for? That's what it is there, is the Home Modification Loan Program. It exists to help people modify their existing home or build an ADU, whether someone has a disability or someone is older. Those are the ways to qualify. The pot is up to $50,000 for your project. It's a 0 interest loan over the course of that loan. Repayment happens when you sell your house. So for example, our project in Leeds, they qualified, they filled out all the paperwork they needed to. As the builder, we completed our portion, and those funds were credited to the homeowner, helped us complete the project. She's living in our ADU now. It's fantastic. And whenever that property is sold, that $50,000 will get repaid and put back into the pot. I just touched on this a little bit, but how does this work? There's agents across Massachusetts. The larger organization is the Community Economic Development Assistance Corporation. I'll have the link for that on the next slide, but you should reach out to your local representative. They're going to figure out if you're pre-qualified based on your needs. You'd work with your builder. to design the house, to come up with the fixed budget. All of this will get presented to HMLP. They'll review it. You'll fill out all the right paperwork. Your builder has a section of paperwork to fill out as well. And then as that project gets completed, there's inspections done, and then those funds are dispersed. Great.
And
Yeah,
Tim, we do have a question about the home modification loan program. Can you elaborate a little bit more on who is eligible? Is it just a disability? Is it elderly people? Who qualifies?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's folks with a documented disability, and folks that are elderly. So just for example, the projects we've done, it was for a daughter with a developmental disability. And then another project was for an elderly person who was designing her home with wheelchair accessibility in the future in mind. So, she's fully mobile, but we wanted to plan with a wheelchair ramp. We wanted to plan with wider doorways. We wanted to plan with an accessible bathroom in the future if she ever needed that. So it's not a direct question or direct answer rather, but you basically have to reach out and see if you qualify with your local representative.
And I'll add a little bit more color to that. So this link here, cdac.org, find out if you qualify, is going to take you through a process to try to determine if you qualify. And they've changed the wording on this since we did the first one of these for an ADU a couple of years ago. And it does say, do you have a disability or are you an older adult? So it does seem like the program is becoming more open to just helping seniors age in place. So I would, as Tim said, reach out to the local group that's going to be facilitating the program, see what they have to say. And it does seem that if you have any kind of doctor's note suggesting that an accessible living situation, whether even if it's just one floor, is going to help you as you get older, this program will probably provide this $50,000. And to those of you that are calling in from Maine, we are working on a Maine version of this program right now, and we hope to have this up for vote in the legislature during this session. So if you are in Maine and you are interested in or would value something like this, please shoot us an email so we can let the legislators know that people want money to build ADUs.
Great. All right. And kind of a couple last options here. Being in the ADU space, as well as the building space, we've been able to find some other options that are available. In Mass, there's the heat loan, which used to be just for renovations, but now is also for new construction. And it's a 0% 7-year loan on the heat pump system. So basically you can defer that upfront cost of the infrastructure for all your heat pumps. And basically that can help defer some of those upfront build costs. And if you pay that out over time, you're looking at about 80 to 140 per month. Some other options that have come up, it's not upfront, but there are mass save rebates for after your project is completed. New tier 1 and tier 2 rebates for energy efficient homes, which all of our homes are hitting that tier 1 rebate, which is worth around $15,000. I've also been, as I travel around the Commonwealth, meeting with nonprofits and looking at ways that regions or municipalities can help with the development of ADUs. And so we're hoping to partner with more folks around the state to look at options to help people get into ADUs. And I believe that is everything that I have on my end. So I've gone through everything here, and I'd love to pass it off to our friends at Renify to talk about how Renify can be a great option to help finance a future ADU. I don't know who wants to go first.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks, Chris. We're excited to be joining you all. We have worked with a few Backyard ADU customers, and ADUs are a common use case for Renify loans, and that's what we're here to tell you more about. So thanks for joining tonight. I am going to share my screen here. All right. Can you see my screen, Tim?
Yep.
Very good. So Renify was started due to the idea that many homeowners are stuck in renovation purgatory because they were limited by the amount of equity they had in their home to access the amount of capital through a traditional home equity product to enable them to do a sizable renovation. And so when equity is your only option, it takes a long time to do the size of a renovation that you're looking to do. So in the case of an ADU, you may need to live in your home for 10 or 15 years to be able to afford it using a traditional home equity product. And so Renify is has built loan products around the idea that when you renovate, the value of your home goes up. And by giving homeowners the credit for increasing the home value up front, Renify loans significantly increase your borrowing power and make renovations possible in a time frame that traditional home equity products do not. 100% of funds from a Renify loan goes directly to the homeowner upon approval with no draw schedules or inspection schedules. And so it's the after renovation value concept of a construction loan without the draw schedules or inspection schedules. 100% of the approved funds go to the homeowner. So on a relative basis, in this example, borrowing power increases by 7x. And we'll get into a few other specific examples. But generally, the idea that you don't need to accumulate equity to do projects is really what we've built Renify on. And our objective as a company is to make renovations possible and help homeowners understand the various ways available to them to finance a significant project on their home. I just said that that first bullet, so I won't repeat it, but we are committed to helping homeowners find the lowest monthly payment, lowest rates, and no refinancing required. So Madeline's going to talk more about our specific financing products in a few moments. We do have a refinancing product in this market. It's not super popular, as you may imagine. And so we do not require a refinance, and our home equity products sit in the second position. Here's a case study. This was a home from out in Iowa. They did a $170,000 renovation. The original home was valued at $500K with an after renovation value after doing a full home remodel, office, fireplace, kitchen, bedroom, painting, structural changes. The ARV, this one appraised really well, came out to $755. And so this is an example of how tapping into that future value really unlocked the borrowing power for the homeowner in this example. Maddie, would you like to take this slide?
Yes, happy to. So does an ADU actually add value to your home? Yes, simple answer. Any renovation you do will add value to the home as long as we are improving the home or the property quality. Specifically with ADUs, you know, whenever we have a brand new ADU unit, the biggest thing is how does the main unit look as well? Because that will also impact that appraisal for us. So for us to maximize your investment and get that after renovation value to levels we need to, definitely suggest doing the ADU build, but maybe a small project in the main unit. Just let's beef up that property and make everything look like it's brand new. So when an appraiser comes, they can really assess that true value for you.
And just to put that into kind of ROI terms, this is just something we've seen from doing more and more appraisals of this kind and working with companies that do this work. But we see anywhere from 60% to 90% ROI on a dollar in to a renovation to what you're getting back on the return. And when there's any level of updates, can be very nominal updates to the main structure, we're seeing higher ROIs on projects where there's something happening in the main structure in addition to putting the ADU on the home. So something that we'd be happy to talk with you more about.
Gotcha. So to break that down, you're seeing someone goes out and builds the ADU for their mother, or the mom is paying for it. And it makes sense then for the kids to also update their kitchen.
Well, yeah, we might not need to do the whole kitchen, but yes, when there's some additional improvement to the main structure, appraisers, we've seen higher ROIs on those projects.
What would you say the budget of a add-on project like that would need to be to add reasonable value to the appraisal?
I would say hit your trouble spots. You know, if the roof needs some work, go ahead and update your roof. If we haven't updated our floors in more than 20 years, maybe let's look at updating the floors. If the kitchen needs a facelift, then go ahead, do the whole kitchen. But basically what appraisers are telling us is they go to these properties and it's great that we've got a brand new, beautiful ADU unit. But when we look at the main home, because there's damage possibly, whether it's even just exterior damage that needs to be updated, it's hard to assess a true value, because if a new purchaser comes along to buy the property, they're going to have to invest money into that main unit. So go ahead and invest that money and bump up your future value. So when you do resell that home, you're actually able to get higher values because there's no work needed. Somebody can move in to the main unit, move into the ADU unit, and not have to provide any money up front.
Very good. Now we're going to talk through, or Maddie is going to talk through a couple of our loan products.
So to start off, we've got Renify HELOC. So based on the after renovation value, we are able to lend up to 90% of loan to after renovation value. And then we are capped at 125% of loan to current home value. So that'll kind of give you a good assessment of where to start. The HELOC is a pretty standard HELOC. It has a 10-year draw period, which for longer renovations really gives you that flexibility, because you'll have a line of credit and have access to that funding as you need it to make those payments. You're billed interest only on what you've actually withdrawn from the line. So it really gives you control for your renovation. Pros to it, you've got that line of credit, so you're not charged interest on money you may not need yet. It also gives you the flexibility to pay as much as you would like to the principal back during that 10-year draw period. I definitely encourage making overpayments, because it is a line of credit similar to a credit card. So as you pay back that principal balance, it is available for you to draw on again for any future projects. Cons to it, it is a variable rate. The rate is going to be tied to Wall Street Journal Prime. So your interest rate would fluctuate as Prime fluctuates. And then you are only billed interest only payments. So if you're not the type of person to add more to that payment, or you just like a set budget, that may be a downfall, because if you're only paying interest payments after 10 years, that full principal balance will remain, and that will roll into a 20-year repayment period.
Do you want to hit on the ARV and peak?
Yep. So we've got actually, we can no longer do 95% after renovation value. We're capped at the 90% loan to after renovation value, but we are capped at 125% of loan to current home value. Minimum loan amount, $25,000. Maximum is going to be $500,000.
And I'll add a little bit of color to that to the folks on the call. This loan to value, these loan to value ratios is one of the primary reasons why we decided that we wanted to bring Renify in as a ADU lending partner. There are lots of banks that will lend for this kind of stuff, but there really aren't any groups that are going up and over that 100% mark. And the way that we saw it is it gives you protection on the appraisal and going out there and doing the construction appraisal, which is also, you're always wondering, what's it going to come back at? Am I going to have enough to actually do my project? So it's a really, really neat feature that can really unlock equity in a home, like not a lot of other things.
And then this is our fixed rate option. So the home equity loan. So it's a lump sum upfront, still in second lien position, so you do not need to refinance your mortgage, but kind of acts like a secondary mortgage for you. Well, you'll get that entire loan on the same day as closing. Roughly 30 days from there, you are billed principal and interest payments. We've got various terms, 5, 10, 15, and 20-year terms, but there's no prepayment penalty. So, go ahead and pull it out to that 20 years, get that lowest payment possible for you, and go ahead and pay it off in 10 years if you choose. Now, it will be principal and interest payments for the life of the loan, but pro to that, no surprises for you. Your rate will never change, your monthly payment will never change, and you can budget accordingly. Cons, you do get that money in a lump sum up front. So if your project is going to take several months, you will be charged interest on the money that you may not necessarily need until, you know, that payment 6 months down the line. And also there's limited flexibility because you're going to be billed a set payment amount, but it does allow you to budget accordingly. Similar peak in ARV, 90% of loan to after renovation value, but capped at 125% of loan to current home value. And then those same loan amounts, 25,000 minimum with 500,000 maximum. Personal loan. So this is our unsecured option. So for those smaller projects, this serves as a great feature for fast funding solutions. If you needed a deposit up front or at least wanted to start purchasing materials, we've used this to basically start a project while we're working in tandem towards our home equity products. We can roll this personal loan into the home equity products if we need to use it on the front end and then just roll it in on the back end. It also serves as a great funding solution if your project goes over budget and you need an additional 20,000 or 50,000. We can come behind and offer this personal loan. And then once you've added value to the home and you've completed that project, we can assist with rolling everything into one loan for you. For this one, we have a minimum of 10,000. It is capped at 100,000. And there are very minimal contracts needed. We just kind of need a brief estimate, but very limited documentation for this one.
Yeah, go ahead, Meg.
Yep. So our approval process, first step would just be connecting with us at Renify. We'll share my information. It's on the co-branded landing page that we have with Backyard ADUs. This will get you access to my scheduling link. It'll have my phone number as well. Feel free to text, call, or email me. So first step would actually just be hopping on an eligibility call with me. Happy to run through the numbers, make sure our debt to income ratio looks good. Happy to talk through each of the scenarios and what every loan option would look like for you with interest rates and monthly payments. So that way you can confidently know you can afford this project. And then to Backyard ADUs, they'll help finalize those plans now that we've got a good idea for that budget, get a firm estimate together. These are the two items that we use to assess that after renovation value. So we will share those plans and estimates with an appraiser. So we don't need the final plans, but as final as possible. That way the appraiser can give you credit for that full project that you intend to do. We'll go through the renovation underwriting, which is Renify's secret sauce, as we call it. So we'll do a feasibility analysis, do our contractor due diligence, and just make sure everything lines up nicely. Once we have the appraisal back and everything is in a nice, pretty package, we will send it off to the lender. Lender will approve it and onboard you to as a credit union partner. And then 100% of the proceeds are given to the homeowner to disperse as needed.
And customers working with Backyard ADUs, number 5 is particularly efficient because we've done a handful of projects with them already. And so we're familiar with their plans and due diligence. They've passed with flying colors many times.
We've got a question coming in. It's kind of just, it's more to the overall process of when do you do what? And so the question is, what about zoning? Shouldn't borrowers find out if their municipal zoning allows ADUs? So unfortunately, the answer is yes, you should definitely figure that out before you waste any time on financing or try to design an ADU. And you should find that out because not all towns allow ADUs in a realistic way. So the general, if you're thinking through where to start and when does this financing come in, we generally say the first step in figuring out if you're going to do an ADU is one, is it right for you? Is there a reason to do it? And if you're asking that question, it's usually, yes, I'm going to build this for my mom. I'm going to try to do a rental unit. Second step is figuring out if your town allows it. And that can be done by reaching out to the local planning department or building department and asking them. Often you do actually have to know what the town calls an ADU. It can be an accessory apartment. It can be a non-incumbent generating living unit. It can be an accessory apartment. There's a slew of different things. Or you can always just shoot us an email. If you email info@Backyard ADUs, we are still responding to all of those with some general zoning guidance. And then after you figured that out, it's a good idea to just figure out if you can finance it, but there's usually a way to get the financing done. Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was great. It's, upfront, we're happy to help and assist that basic question of, is it allowed? What's it called? What are the parameters and restrictions? From there, we do something called a feasibility study, where we can come out to your property and assess the infrastructure. What are your utilities like? How is that going to impact a build and the budget? And kind of run from there to say, go further down the funnel of unknowns towards something and saying, yes, this is possible. This is the ballpark of how much it's going to cost, so that you can then take that next step to say, okay, I'm ready to start that financing piece, and put that piece of the puzzle in place.
And then one other quick question, somebody was asking, trying to find a company that can build ADUs near Montague. We are working on an ADU in Montague. So we're very familiar with the zoning rules there, and Montague's got pretty decent rules. So if you want us to take a look at your property and let you know what's possible, just shoot us an email.
Yeah, that concludes our presentation on the Renify side. So happy to have some Q&A.
Yeah, we have one coming in here just asking about how does Renify's offerings for the HELOC and the home equity lines stack up against your competitors? Or do you have competitors? Yeah.
So right now for home equity loans and home equity lines of credit, most competitors are only offering based on the current home value. And what I hear is they'll offer based on 80% up to 85% of loan to current home value. And so Renify differs that we can tap into the after renovation value, so you can utilize that future equity upfront.
Great. And kind of down that vein, in those appraisals in markets where there really aren't a lot of ADUs, how do they find comps or comparable properties? How do they work towards that appraisal number?
So that one can be a little tricky sometimes. Appraisers are having to get creative, to be honest. So if there's no ADU in the immediate area, they may look at a garage conversion or may look at a mother-in-law suite attached and kind of just assess the value how they can. If you hear that your neighbor did an ADU or someone in the neighborhood has done one, definitely share that with us, with your ADU builder, so that way we can make sure the appraiser is aware. Because the biggest thing with comparables we're finding is not everyone declares their ADU unit. So you may have one across the street, it's just not listed on Zillow or Redfin. So the appraiser isn't utilizing that property as a comparison. So we definitely encourage homeowners, if you are aware of one, share it with us. We actually build a package for the appraiser, and we'll share comparison reports that we've done internally for our own research. We want to make it as easy as possible. And we want to basically assure for the appraiser, we think the appraised value should be in this realm, and here's why. Here are some units that you can use. So any comparables that you want to share definitely helps. Otherwise, the appraiser may just find what they can find.
Great. Yeah, it's a fantastic answer. There's the questions are rolling in. So let's say your home doesn't have a super high value relative to the cost of building an ADU. Do you have any kind of recommendations of how you might navigate that situation?
Truthfully, it really depends on the appraisal. So based on current home value, you may say you don't have a lot of value in the home, but maybe we just need to spruce up the home. Maybe we do some interior updates to bring that value up so we can maximize the after renovation value to get you enough funding to build the ADU. I'm sure your home is valued more than you think. Sometimes we just have to get creative.
And I'll add too, specifically to where a lot of the places that we're building, if you're in an area like Northampton or East Hampton or Amherst or Portland, Maine, or Portsmouth, New Hampshire, or anywhere near Boston or the Cape, the comps are going to be priced very high per square foot. And unless you recently took out your mortgage and it's like a 90% LTV, you're probably going to be able to get enough equity out of it to build the ADU.
And I'll just jump on that in terms of our design process. When we're working through designs and working at budgets, We have ways to kind of, if we know there's a certain number we need to hit, we can try to, back in that design phase up front to know that we're going to be in a good place when it comes time to put that financing together. All right, I'm scanning through the questions here. Kind of a follow-up for first-time home buyers. Oh, here's a good one. What are your current rates when you're looking at home equity loans?
Yeah, so for the rates, the fixed rate option with the corresponding loan to value ratios and a good credit score, we're talking 780 or higher, or I should say 760 or higher, we could see a fixed rate as low as 6.29%. Our fixed rate option, though, we're probably seeing rates from 6.29 up to 7%. But I'll be honest, it's more about the payment. Rates are what they are right now. Rates have gone up this year. Rates go up and down every year, it seems like. So I would say let's focus more on the monthly payment. And if you can support the monthly payment, then it's a great loan product for you. As rates go down in the next 2 years, none of our products have a prepayment penalty. So you can always look at refinancing into a lower rate.
Great. Yeah. And I'll add our pricing on our website. We do a similar thing is, often that upfront sticker price can be pretty daunting, but let's look at it over that monthly cost. What's your mortgage going to be? What are your utility bills going to be? Because oftentimes with new construction, meeting all the new energy efficient criteria, you're going to have lower utility bills. So kind of chunking that down into what's it going to be per month is great.
And I would add just to this, building these has become incredibly expensive in the last couple of years. When we started doing this, we were building for about 40% less. So we definitely feel with everyone when they're looking at these numbers and saying, why the heck is a small home going to cost $250,000 in a backyard? The key with that is who knows where prices are going in the future. But as Madeline said, and as Tim said, it's really, can you afford, real estate finance always has a way of making things possible and making things more affordable. So we want to use this stuff as a tool to make this affordable, to live closer to families. And ultimately, building one of these in a backyard is going to be a lot cheaper than alternative options like buying in a condo or building on a raw piece of land.
Great. There's questions come in, and it kind of relates back to our one of our most frequently asked questions is, let's say, a child is building in their parents' backyard. Their parent is on the deed of the original house, so they'll be, that new ADU unit will be in the backyard. How do you guys work when it comes to, financing for, a sibling? How can there be, a partnership in there?
So for our loans, any signer on a Renify loan does have to be a deed or title holder. They do not have to be on the existing mortgage for the property, but they would have to be added to the title. So for that example, if a kid is moving back home with their parents and they want to build the ADU in the backyard, but the kid wants to pay for the unit, that's totally fine. It's just the kid needs to be added to the deed or title. I believe there are different ways. Each county is slightly different, but as long as they have a small percentage, they don't have to necessarily be 100% owner, but they just have to be reflected as owner, because our loan uses the property as a whole as collateral. So for you to be a signer on our loan, you have to be an owner of the property.
Great. Yeah. And we've, outside of that familiar relationship, we've seen some folks who say are retiring on the land where their best friend lives. And it's a similar thing they have to navigate is, how can I ensure that I hold on to some of this value, and it's working, generally with a lawyer to get on that deed to make sure that, you have everything ready to go before you build. Awesome. So there's a bunch of questions here. One is just quickly, what if you don't have land or property yet, and you're really kind of like looking at the market? I'm going to just take this one. That's a one where definitely reach out to us. We're happy to help you. If there's a region you're looking at, if there's a town you're looking at, that's a great way where that feasibility study, let's say you're looking at a property, you've done a site visit, you go under contract. We're happy to kind of do that feasibility study, acting like a home inspection, to go and try to let you know, hey, what are the utilities? What are some costs you might need to look out for? And how much will it cost to build on that site? All right, next we have, generally speaking, we're talking in this broad term ADU, accessory dwelling unit. But like Chris mentioned, some towns call it an accessory apartment or an in-law apartment. Does Renify have a specific definition? Do you look at what each town calls it? Or how does that work on your end?
So no specific difference, to be honest. So we will assist with any renovation financing. So whether you are doing an ADU, garage conversion, or even just adding square feet, even if you're not adding square feet at all and you're just updating the kitchen, we can assist. So anything that's going to be permanent to the property, Renify can help with.
Great. Awesome. And then two questions, they're in a similar vein. What if they're an investor and they're not an owner occupier? How would that work?
So we cannot use after renovation value for investment properties, but we can assist with your more traditional home equity style products based on current home value for investment properties.
Great. And then in that sense, if there's a condoization, there's a couple towns in mind where, hey, this ADU was built and now they're condoized, so they are assets in that sense. Is that something you guys take into consideration, or how does that work on your end?
I can't say that I've seen that too much, so it'd probably be a new experience if we saw that together. Now, what I will say, we can do condos. They have to be FNMA warrantable condos, which we can go through eligibility on those calls and just make sure we can finance on the condo. But an ADU converting into a condo would be a unique scenario. Now, we have seen barns be converted into condominiums, barn dominiums, and we've been able to help with that. So it just may be getting creative with our lending partners.
Awesome. We have a question about different building techniques. So someone's asking about SIPs, which are structurally insulated panels. From your perspective, like the means of building this ADU or the renovation, is that something you take into consideration?
We'll take it into consideration for our feasibility review, just to make sure the cost matches with the materials being used, but doesn't impact the eligibility for our loan, as long as the main dwelling unit was a site-built unit.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'll just follow up on that. Our units are modular. So it comes as a prefab box. It's not SIPs. So we don't work with those specifically. Great. All right. A lot of questions here. So I'm going down here.
To finish that person's question, Go Logic out of Maine does a version of SIPs and may be able to do your design. And then Unity out of New Hampshire, I think probably does the best version of SIPs. Both are very expensive, but also do very, very good work. So I would reach out to them. I don't know anyone other than that doing SIP panels. There are some smaller builders that have dabbled in them, but there's less of that going in on the residential side because it ends up still taking a lot of finished work after they go in. So it's kind of a very specialist thing. And that's why we use modular too. It's so hard to find local teams at this point, and it gets harder and harder, feels like by the year.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
In between baby shakes. Thank you, everybody on the call for being patient.
We have another great question coming in. Do you have any resources that list out how much common home renovations usually add to a home's value?
I don't have a list because, to be honest, every renovation is different and every appraiser is different, because truthfully, that's what an appraisal is someone's expert opinion of the value and the renovation plans. What I will say is we just see better values and better returns when we have as much information as possible. So when you're starting to plan out a renovation, go ahead and start thinking about those finer materials. It sounds crazy in the design phase, but think about the faucets you want. Think about the light fixtures you want, because that can add value to a home. So when we give the appraiser more information to assess, we see better values. When we have plans that are pretty generic and it's just a broad overview, we've got great blueprints, but we don't even know what the countertops are going to look like, we're going to see a lower value because appraisers are having to assume what materials you're going to choose. And usually they just go with whatever is the average in your market. But I'll use countertops for an example. Granite countertops are really big. Quartz countertops are really big right now. So quartz countertops appraise more than granite, but granite more than tile, and tile more than plastic. But if we don't give the appraiser those materials, they may just assess it as if you're going to use the cheapest materials possible and give you that value based on what you're not actually going to use.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I actually met this morning with an appraiser who's appraising one of our houses in Northampton. And not to brag, but she was blown away with what we were doing. We were looking exactly that. Hey, what's the faucet? What's our countertops? Are these soft close drawers? Yeah, there's good hardware on there. Let's look in the bathroom. Okay, this is a real tile floor. What's our vanity look like? So we walked through the whole house. She popped into the crawl space, trying to get a sense of, how well is this thing built? How easy is it to repair? What's our insulation? Taking measurements. So exactly that is. So when thinking to kind of round out this question here is, think about what you're actually, not just what you're doing, but what are you going to use? What's that product going to be?
And a quick side note, talk to your appraiser. If you're paying for a walkthrough appraisal, leverage that walkthrough, sit them down at the kitchen table and just have a conversation. Ask Backyard ADUs, hey, would you mind talking to the appraiser? Tim can walk through it with them and really point out those finer pieces, like we are doing this for this purpose to show where that value is going to come from. Just to give you guys a quick example, we had a homeowner who was going through our process, spending $179,000 on the property. The first appraiser only gave him a $60,000 return. We didn't agree with it. We ordered a new appraisal. The second appraiser had some experience, sat down with the homeowners, actually spent time to learn about the project, and we saw a $250,000 return out of $179,000. So it really does help to give as much information as possible and to just have a conversation with the appraiser. Tell them why you're going with those materials. If you're using commercial grade appliances, mention that. Hey, I'm a chef. I like bigger appliances. I want nicer appliances in my home so that they can carry that value over for you.
Fantastic. All right.
Just add a little bit of light to that, because I'm listening to this and I want to make sure nobody thinks that the goal here is to just game appraisals to make sure you have enough money to pay for a service. It was kind of said earlier on, but the goal is to figure out how to pay for an ADU, because a lot of people who are doing this really need it. So what we're working on with Renify and other financing options is basically hacking real estate finance to make this work. And there's a lot of things that are not subjective in doing appraisal work that can be leveraged to make sure that you can build this. But Madeline said this earlier, borrow based on what you can afford, not what we can hack the system for, because the two may not be the same thing.
Question coming in kind of about utilities. So how water, electricity, septic or sewer, and then gas are run. It really depends on your municipality, on where you're located. In Mass, there's generally a gas moratorium. So running new gas lines is off the table. There's also strong incentives to hit new Mass Save goals, and those are all electric. So we're generally not touching gas. And then, the water line, depending on where you are, whether it's city water or well water, the electric company, are we doing an overhead service? What's the capacity of your existing panel? And then sewer or septic. If you're on a septic, how many bedrooms in your house? How many bedrooms are allowed in your septic? How much are we thinking of adding here? And then if you're on town sewer, just making sure that your infrastructure is up to par and that we have a clear run to connect.
And I'll say this pretty strongly about the gas. There is no reason to bring gas or oil or fossil fuels into a new home. There's just no reason to do it anymore. whether it's for heating or whether it's for stoves. Induction stoves perform extremely well. And a well-insulated home, heated and cooled by a heat pump, is the cheapest way to do that, even in northern climates in New England. And we've seen this time and time again in our third-party HERS ratings. We've seen it empirically in Maine and northern Mass. And there's still misinformation out there about the quality and reliability of mini split systems, but it's just, they are the way of the future. And there are good concerns about what happens if the power goes out. But a generator can back you up for those couple days. And generators are pretty inexpensive, or you can put in a high efficiency wood stove to keep the heat going. But anyway, there's no reason to bring gas into a new house. And that's generally where we stand on it. And we try to help homeowners meet that, because there are some tough decisions that have to be made, and especially with people who have lived with a gas stove or lived in doing it a certain way for 40 years. We really work to kind of explain why these new systems are significantly better from a environmental standpoint, but it's also a healthier home to take propane and things out of it. I'll jump off my soapbox.
Great. Well, we're nearing 6:30 here. If anyone has any last questions to dive in, I guess one last thing to parlay off of Chris, and I talked about it earlier, is that new heat loan, which is 0% for 7 years to pay for that mini split infrastructure. David, Madeline, Charles, do you guys have anything to add on your end from the Renify perspective?
We're here if you need us. Give us a call.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Madeline, we have your contact information, and it's on that joint page. So we have the recording from tonight. We have your information. And as always, we're here at Backyard ADUs. So if you have some questions, when Chris is not wrangling his daughter Lily, him or me, we'll be here to help.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Have a great night, everybody. We look forward to meeting some of you in person and helping you build an ADU. And if it's not with us, hopefully Renify still finances it and you get it built. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.